Hello everybody, welcome back to another day of shenanigans and welcome back to the Art Mod Shop. Today we are going to be talking about how to rust your props. So there are many reasons why you would want to rust your props and why you would want to rust a furniture piece or set piece or whatever. It could either be a part of a scene, it could be the theme of the movie or the theme of the photo. There's many reasons. So today we're going to be talking about putting real rust on plastic. And I 3D printed a prop by, his name is Bart Vander Westerlaken, or Shrubsy. And you can find him on My Mini Factory, you can find him on Twitter, you can find him on YouTube. He is a very good prop designer. So I took his Star Wars prop, the Electroshock cattle prod that he made, and I printed it out, 3D printed it out, and putting it together. So I'm using four different types of plastics. I'm using PLA, ABS, PETG, and HTPLA. Now the HTPLA is from Protopasta. It is an iron-filled compounded plastic. You can sand it down, get a nice finish on it, and you can rust it. You don't need to do anything else to it. All the other plastics you can't do that with because it's just plastic. So we are going to be adding an iron base to that plastic, to that printed plastic, and then we're going to be rusting it using two different methods. Okay, so here we have some lemon juice, some salt, some vinegar, and paper towel. We're going to put all this into a Ziploc bag. The reason we're going to do this is because this is going to give us a heavy rust look, a wet, leaky pipe type look. We'll wrap the part in the paper towel. We'll put the sea salt in the paper towel and around the paper towel inside the bag. Then we'll pour a good amount of lemon juice in there, some vinegar, and close the bag. And we're going to hang it up in front of this light. You want warmth on it. You can put it outside if you're in a hot climate, or you can put it under a heat lamp. I would not recommend putting it in the oven. But if you do have a food dehydrator, that works super well. Slap that thing in a food dehydrator and turn it on, wait a couple hours, and pull it out. Now you want to leave this out from 4 to 24 hours in heat. And the longer you leave it in the heat, the more of a buildup you're going to get, the more rust you are going to get on the part. And you can see what it did here. It created a pretty thick coat in this corner, which is nice, and you can actually feel it. It sticks out. So it built up. As for the top piece, this was also sitting in the homemade solution. So you can see that buildup, that thick rust buildup on there. So the second method we're going to be talking about is a paint solution. Now this is made by Sophisticated Plastics, or Sophisticated Finishes, and it is an iron metallic surfacer. So you're going to want to prime the part. If it's slippery, you want to get all the debris off. You don't want anything on there. You want it to be nice, clean plastic or wood or whatever you're putting it on. So it's a base surfacer. It's mixed with iron, so it's got a big iron content in it. The bottle's super heavy. You can pick this up at Michael's, Blick's, any art store. You might even be able to find it on Amazon. It's not super cheap. A kit that has the surfacer and the rusting solution is about 15 bucks, and you don't get a lot, but you also don't need a lot normally for smaller projects. You can get small bottles, you can get big bottles. It just depends what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the surface of this prop with the iron surfacer. You don't want to get on anything, you don't want animals near it. It's nasty stuff. It doesn't smell, it's just very poisonous, it's toxic. And I don't know if the bottle says non-toxic, but it's pretty toxic, because I got some in my mouth and my mouth started tingling. There are a couple ways you can get different looks on your parts. You can either use a sponge or you can use different types of brushes. or whatever really else you want to use on it. There's a lot of different options. So if you want to get a nice textured look to it, you can put it on a sponge and press it against the part. And that will give you a nice bumpy, unfinished iron surface on there. It adds extra detail. It does hide layer lines. Be sure to sand first. I would always recommend sanding your parts down. It doesn't have to be super perfect because this stuff is pretty thick and it will go in and hide some stuff. Now with the Protopasta iron fill, all you have to do is sand that down and start rusting it. And you don't have to use the surfacer. You don't have to use the iron stuff because it's already got iron in it. And I tell you what, this filament, this Protopasta, is one of my favorite compounded materials to use, just because you can rust it and you can do so much with it. And it has a good weight to it as well, so it adds some weight to the prop. So after all that, now we get down to the good stuff. This is going to be the rusting solution that Sophisticated Finishes sells. You can use a sponge, you can use paintbrushes, or you can fill a bag and just throw the parts in there and let it sit and shake it around. And you do want to have that sit from 4 to 24 hours as well. So this is the side that was laying in the solution right here. And as you can see, it did rust everything else, but it created a thicker water rust on this side, and then a nice even rust everywhere else. It brings out some nice color, some nice detail. You can see at the edge where the water was sitting, it has a little orange outline, orange hue to it, which is very, very neat. Same for this one. You can see where it's thicker, where it's lighter. It's like a dusting of rust and then a thick sludge. As well as this part, it gave it a nice color, nice gradient of rust. So it goes, you got your oranges and your yellows and even some reds. It really creates a nice piece. This one I just threw in there last night. It has nothing to do with the model. This is for my Project FDL-3 blaster. This is just regular atomic PLA. And as you can see, it definitely did a number on this and looks really, really nice. Now you can go over it again. You can hit it with some 400, 600 grit sandpaper if you would like, and kind of knock the rust down. Or you can keep adding more with a paintbrush, more solution with a paintbrush in places you want to be thicker or where you want to bring out more color. And we have that piece, which, of course, the back didn't do too well because I didn't put as much on the back. I used the sponge for the back, and you can see what it did. It gave it spotty. It just turned it a little brown, gave it some spots, got in the cracks, and that's good. If that's what you're going for. If you're looking for just a light rust, something that needs to be polished, that looks like it needs to be polished, it's just a little bit tarnished, that's a good method. And then when you go to the front, this is where I did the paintbrush, and the paintbrush I added a whole lot more solution to it, which really brought out all the yellow and those browns. I outlined with the homemade solution just to give it a little bit of color in there, a little bit of that yellow and orange rusted look. So depending on how many coats you put on, the brighter it's going to be and the more rusted it's going to be. Those are just some methods that you can do. This video took 4 days to shoot, just because I had to let things sit. The more solution you add after it's all dried, you can add more solution on top of that. It's gonna rust it more, but you want to wait for it to dry. You don't want to just keep pouring it in because it's not going to do anything. Okay, so now that we have all of our pieces rusted and looking how we want them to look, we are going to go ahead and we're going to snap this thing together, and then we will get into a little bit of paint and glue, and I will talk about that as well, but I'm not going to go in as much detail. The rusting looks great. I think it looks very, very nice. Got your greens and your yellows and oranges and browns and dark browns, light browns, reds. It all pulls the piece together depending on how you do different parts. Alright, so now we're going to glue this together, and I like using Zap-A-Gap. Zap-A-Gap is a great glue. It is a medium CA. They have different types of Zap-A-Gaps, but I use the green label because it is a filler. It fills cracks, it fills holes, and you can sand it and it dries clear, and then you can paint over it, and it's real good to get rid of layer lines and get rid of creases and seams and whatever. And it also holds really, really well. The paint that I always use for either painting a picture or any detail work or whatever, I like using Goldine. They're a little bit pricey, but I like the quality of the acrylic and the colors that they have and the choices that they come out with. So you can do it wet or you can do a dry brush. Just kind of go over this a little bit. It looked like there was a little bit of paint left on there. So now I'm dry brushing, which is using drier paint or less paint, and that pretty much will go over bumps, bring out details. It creates a different texture than using just wet paint. There's a lot to think about when you're doing it, and it's super easy. It's just thinking about where you want to place things, how you want to place things, and why you are putting things where they're going. You know, why is it rusted? Why is the paint still on there? So if the paint's still on there, then that means either they have some real awesome paint that they used, or it wasn't paint at all. Maybe it was some other type of technology that they used to color it, or you know, maybe it hasn't been sitting out, you know, as long as, you know, it's not an ancient relic. It is just, you know, 20 years old that's been sitting out on a farm somewhere. Those are the things you got to think about when you're doing stuff, especially if you're doing a prop for a film or just a replica and putting your own spin on it. Now, black is a hard color to use, and I say that because it's so deep that if you just put a little bit on, it'll change the whole look instantly. Just at a drop of a hat, it'll change the way everything forms together and looks. Just because it's just so contrastive. That's not even a word. But it just adds so much contrast to your piece. So now I'm going to use a good old crink marker. It is a chrome, and I just want to add little details up at the top. spot there, maybe around here. Because that's gonna almost pull your eye away from that dark spot. So now it looks like something may have rubbed on it, rubbed against it, get the paint off, and then everything else pretty much rusted. I think that's decent. I think that's okay. I'm okay with that. One last thing that I want to go over is actually adding other parts to it to make it more realistic to the actual prop that you're replicating or to the prop that you have created. So this calls for wires. So I just snipped some red and black wire, and I have glued it in there. But this is going to look way too new. So you can cut it or you can fray it. So I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to take down a lot of this. So before I glue them into this bottom part here, I want to get this black wire prepped and ready as well. A little burnt. Maybe it got caught fire or it got too hot. Maybe the wire's burned. This is pretty much how you do it. It's not hard to do. Just make sure you make good artistic choices and make sure your whole project doesn't turn out looking like poo. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I hope this helped. So thank you everybody for coming and watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and if you like this video, please subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications of upcoming videos, and I will talk to you all later. See you.